Daredevil episode 2, Cut Man. Definitely a great episode. I really love the fact that we got to meet a new character. We got to meet Claire, who's a nurse, helping out Matt after he's found in the dumpster. We find out also that this episode is 2 weeks, or sorry, not 2 weeks, 2 days after the last episode, which was pretty interesting. And we got to see him. They sort of skipped over one of the moments. I'm sure we'll have another moment sort of on screen, but they skipped over one of the big moments for really any character that's working to be a hero, and that is when that character does something where it's like, I'm doing really good. Like, we got sort of two different sides of things as far as backstory. We got one side of things from Claire where it's like she, as a nurse, she works in the ER, so she had people come in who were, either, in the first story it was criminals that came in because they were all beat up by Daredevil, or she had someone who came in just to kind of get looked over, and she was saved by Daredevil as well. And so she got this side of things where he's been doing good for enough time to where it kind of spread around, like word is spread that this man in a black mask is saving people. And then from Daredevil's side of view, we got the story of him kind of going into things thinking like, I'm doing good as a hero. I'm actually being really smart. I found this kid. I found out where he is. I'm going to save him. Try to. I'm assuming his dad is fine, at least alive. He mentioned that they beat him up and kind of left him. But it's like, he found the kid. He thought he was being smart. And then when he got there, it was actually a trap for him because he's kind of been messing things up for their businesses. So even though they kind of skipped over it visually, we actually got to see him sort of live the aftermath of one of those moments, and it made it fairly interesting where it was obviously something huge. I mean, he was in this dumpster, so either he fell off a roof because he was like trying to jump across them and stuff, and he just ended up being too weak, or he was just flat out in the dumpster. They just, he mentioned he barely escaped, so I have to assume it was him like going across the roof or something like that, and he just fell in, like he was too weak to make it, and he just dropped down, and we got to experience in this episode really the aftermath of that situation. And we got the storytelling of him having failed as a hero, but we got to see him live out the failure and also the retribution at the end of the episode, which was like the coolest thing ever. It was my favorite part of the episode, not only because it was action, but because it was real action. Like, I love when movies do that or TV shows do that because it's so rare to get anything where it's like, oh, look at this superhero fighting like 6 people, or a guy who, admittedly, yeah, he has enhanced strength or something like that, but he's not, he's not like Spider-Man or something where Spider-Man could just like flip and dodge and bend in all these different directions and just dodge everything, and he'll just make a joke at them like, all right, I'm out of here. Daredevil doesn't have that. Daredevil gets tired, and he was tired in this fight. He goes in, he's already wounded and stuff, although you wouldn't know it from like all the spinning and stuff that he did in the fight scene. But it was amazing. Like, it was such a cool fight, and nothing is cooler than like just a one shot of an action scene. Like, I love one shots when they're really cool, and it's like, that's pretty sweet. But when it's an action one shot, it takes so much to get all that stuff down packed. Especially in this, because during one of the portions of the fight, they have it where the door breaks down, and then they have it where the other guy walks to the door, which was hilarious in the fight, and he just looks in and like a freaking TV hits him in the face, which I thought was so funny. And you have to have real good choreography for stuff like that. And if any of that messes up, it's like, all right, we gotta set this back up, which probably takes a lot longer than you might think, even though it's just a door. But the door broke off from the wall. They'd have to reset all that stuff, and they'd have to reset the room to look at least somewhat decent, where it's like, oh, they're just sitting down. They can't have like papers all over the place and stuff like that. And it was just a great fight. It was cool to see. Excuse me. It was cool to see, like, he goes in. He's not exactly in tip-top shape to begin with, but he goes in. He fights these people. He knows where everyone is. I kind of sucked that they did the first part where the door closed, and I thought that's how it was gonna end. But fortunately, that was just the beginning, and it definitely rebounded after that because he was fighting in the hallway. But he goes in, he fights those people. They do the choreography. One guy flies through the wall. The other guy gets hit in the head with the freezer, which is like, every time I think about it, because it was just so fast. It was just like, and then he goes down, and it was so funny to me how fast that happened. But they have to have that timing right. Like they have to have that timing where it's like you have to do that little mark to make it look kind of funny. Or really, even if some people didn't think it was funny, they probably thought it was sweet. It was just so funny to me because I didn't even see that coming. I thought he'd look in and maybe Daredevil would come out at him, or maybe he would be pushing someone out the door and they would bump into him. I didn't think like just a TV was going to fly and hit him in the head and he'd fall down, or a freezer or something hit him in the head. But it was really, really funny to me. And then the rest of the fight was cool. And Daredevil, I think one of the coolest parts was when he jumped off the wall and he like punched a guy, but he like punched him and he was like falling. He almost fell over when he did it because he was so tired fighting all these different guys. And then like even I think the very last guy he punched, he knocked the guy out, and then he fell over another guy and fell into the next room because he was like dead tired. He was just like he had already done like a cool little flip and kicked the guy. Then the guy stood up, so they're both freaking tired. The guy's trying to like back away from him and try to regain himself. He's like, I gotta, I'm freaking tired, but I gotta punch this guy and take him down. So he's like doing one punch and it's like, oh god, and then he does another punch, and then he does the final punch, and like he finally knocks the guy down, and he, like I said, he trips over the one dude and just falls into the next room. And it was just really cool. It was a nice little, well, I can't say a little scene, but it was just an amazing little scene. Even though I said little again, it was an amazing scene where it was very real. Like it was a lot like a martial arts film, like maybe some more recent ones, because some older martial arts films is just Bruce Lee stuff. As awesome as he is, Bruce Lee would take down like 100 dudes in a movie, and it's like, man, he's not even tired. He goes on to the boss after that. So not exactly realistic, but awesome. And in this case, it was sort of a blend of the two, where he does have these enhanced skills where he can dodge and stuff like that because he knows what's coming, and that allows him to expend much less energy than obviously taking a hit and being hurt physically and having to recuperate from that. Even though visually we all see that happen in like 2 seconds, but anyone who's ever been punched knows it might visually look like 2 seconds, but it feels like a million years. When you get punched and it's like you have to recuperate from a serious punch. So it was just really cool to see that happen. Like it was a great little scene where they just go through, and I don't know, I keep saying little, but because the scene itself is just a long scene, so it's not little in any regard outside of the fact that it's in a very little space. But it was just a great scene. Like I really love that ending, and of course, he saved the kid at the end. I don't know if we're gonna actually see him take him to his father, which wouldn't really mean that much. Like that, it was obviously the boy was taken as a trap, so it wouldn't have that much. It wouldn't contribute that much to the show if they did it in the next episode where he took him there. But it played a huge role in this episode because aside from the aftermath of the failure and, the boy being taken and the fight that happened, in between that, we got to see the sort of flashback parallel. And it was great. It was the actual story of his father dying, which, I think I might do this for a little while, but it's hard not to connect it to having seen the original Daredevil film, and they tell the initial backstory and stuff like that. And in this, it felt so much better. Like, it's obviously they have way more time, with each episode almost being as long as the old Daredevil movie itself. But it was just really well done. Like, I really loved it because in the old movie, from what I remember, it wasn't exactly as much of a connection as we saw in this episode, where his father was gonna, Jack was gonna take this, or I don't know if his name was Jack or anything like that, but he was gonna take the fall, and then it's like they end up having the conversation where they always fall down, but they always get back up, and it just felt good. Like it was like him having this connection with his son is the reason that he changed things. Like even though he knew it would probably result in his death, he knew that it would most likely be something really bad. He wanted to do this so that his son could have this really great moment and, cheer for his father and have his father be, remembered by all these people for being this great boxer. And he, of course, has all the money put in his name and stuff like that. And he wants his mother to come back into his life and, take care of her son. And it was just really good. Like the connection was really there much more than I felt it was in the actual film that we had. So I loved it. I thought it was really good. I thought that was how they were going to end the episode, where um, he was like the younger Matt was over his father. It was just like an incredibly sad scene. It was like, it was just really powerful. Like, it kind of got to me, just the way they had it acted out and stuff, and um, just the way it looked when he went up to his father and he was kind of just there. Like, he stopped because his cane hit his father's body, and he just stopped, and he was just there looking forward, and he kind of fills his face and stuff, and he's just there really by himself, and just, random people, cops and stuff like that. It was just a really powerful scene. I thought it was incredibly well done. um, Honestly, it sucks that it happened in the second episode. I know that's a part of his backstory, but I actually really liked the actor who did play the father. I thought he did a really good job in kind of both scenes, like where he was sort of a different character. When the accident first happened, he had to be that really caring father where he had to help his son in this extremely tough emotional time, and he was just seemed like a different character than when he was his normal self, where he was sort of wisecracking, and he had him take like a sip of whiskey or whatever it was, because he didn't want him shaking and stuff doing his stitches, and it was funny, and he was sort of wisecracking with him and stuff like that. But when it came time to be incredibly serious and he couldn't make those jokes, that's what he did, and it was just really good. Like, I thought it was just really well acted. So it does kind of suck to see that happen so soon, but it is. I mean, it's his backstory. That's like how he grew up, like without his father. So it does have to happen fairly soon. Like, they can't kind of drag that out too much longer. So it sucks that it had to happen so quick, because I like the actor, but it was definitely well played. I thought it was really well done. It was definitely really cool. So I loved that. The action, like I said, in the end scene was really good. Getting to meet the character Claire was definitely cool, and her knowing Matt's secret identity, at least visually knowing his face. I mean, considering he's a lawyer who has a cardboard cutout with his name on it, she probably won't see him on TV too much, but she does know his face, and she'll be there to help out. I'm assuming she'll be in pretty much every episode, so she'll be there to help him out. And then we also got to see Karen and Foggy kind of go out and just have a good time, which I thought was cool. It was nice to just see these characters sort of bond with each other and just have a silly, fun time. So that was definitely a nice contrast for pretty much the rest of the episode, which was, I lost the kid, I got beat up, here's a flashback of my father being killed and stuff like that. So nice little departure of just silliness with them getting drunk and hanging out and really bonding as friends and stuff like that. So I enjoyed that as well, and I was glad to see that nothing happened to them, because I was so sure when they were walking down talking about how nice the city is and how they should just hang out and stay out all night. The first thing I thought was, they're gonna go around the corner and it's gonna be like anything superhero based. It's like, let's go around this corner and then there's a gang of criminals ready to beat us up or something. So I'm glad that didn't happen, and they're just able to have like a silly fun night, and it didn't turn into something really dark like the rest of the episode, and it was just silly and fun, and they just stayed out all night. So definitely loved that. It was a great second episode. Like I said, I can't praise the fight scene enough because of just that amazing one shot that they had, and how realistic it looked with him being tired, just like throwing punches. It's like, oh, like by the end of it, I think the last three people, he was just incredibly tired. Like, I gotta freaking throw another punch, and I don't feel like it. I'm just tired. I want to leave. But he throws the punches, he takes the punches and kicks in some cases, and he does what he has to do to get this boy back to his father. And it was a great way to end the episode, where he's grown up and he's dealt with this sort of parallel that the kid has gone through of not having his father. At least, for the boy, obviously it was a couple of days, but he's dealt with that, and he wants to be the hero that he's working towards being. And that's what he does in this episode, and he recuperates, and he goes and he saves the kid, and it was really awesome. The interrogation scene, also very awesome, especially when Claire was like, cut the thing like right above his eye, and that was fairly intense. And then when he threw him off the building, I'm like, I don't remember Daredevil killing people, but maybe he does when he's early on or something, because it is Daredevil. Like, I don't, like I said, I don't really know his character that much. Maybe that's how he started off, but he did throw him, into the dumpster, so it was a nice little technicality, and it was definitely really cool. I mean, that guy could easily be paralyzed, but he's alive, so he's like, I didn't kill him, and Batman style, just like, he's not dead. I'll just break every bone in his body, and kind of walk away. But it was a nice episode. I'm looking forward to episode 3, which it's 2:21 in the morning right now. I wish I wasn't going. It was like the one time I wish I wasn't attending a convention over the weekend, but I am. So of course it all happens at one time, and that's why I ended up watching the episodes so late. But I am gonna watch episode 3 because it's just a good show. It's actually really entertaining to watch. The action's really cool, but the storytelling as well. Obviously, as much as action is amazing, and I love great action scenes, story is incredibly important. Like, I wouldn't have talked so much about how I love the flashback and wish they kind of spread it out a little bit longer if it wasn't told so well. But it was, and it's great writing. And it's only in the second episode, but it's really good writing. They sort of do something interesting with the failure of the hero being off screen, and that being the catalyst for the entire episode, and how he meets this new character and what he does while he's sort of incapacitated, or at least in a weakened state, and he interrogates the guy pretending to be an officer and stuff like that. Also, an amazing scene when he had the fire extinguisher. That was really, really cool. I love that scene. And he's just holding it, and he just lets go of that little pin and just drops it straight on his head. And I was like, that was actually a really awesome scene. And I hope we get more use of his powers in that way, where it's like he does stuff. Like, we had it a ton in this episode where he does, like, the hearing thing, where he can smell the cologne and tell, obviously, if people are lying or telling the truth. And we get that a lot, but physically, and technically I guess we get it a lot physically too, because he does that in the fights. That's how he does all the dodging and things like that. But that was like sort of an in-between moment where it's like he's not fighting, but he's not just listening or smelling something. He's like in between. Like, he obviously took the guy out in one hit using something simple enough. He just does, like pinpoint accuracy, and just boom, he takes the guy out. I'd love to see more little stuff like that where, maybe even in a comedic sense, where he's messing with his partner, or he's messing with Karen even, and he's just, doing something silly, like flick something, and he can do it with like pinpoint accuracy, and it really messes with their minds or something. I'd love to see that, just little cool uses of his powers, where it's either, like he did in this episode where he takes people out, or just, some fun, silly, playing around stuff with whoever he might decide to do that to. But I love the episode. And of course, I want to know what you guys thought about it. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And what I want to know is, what do you guys think about the flashback? Like, how do you guys think it was told, as far as, both how true it is to the initial story. I believe it's about 100% true. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be scene for scene. And it could have been. I wouldn't know at all. But it could have been scene for scene from the comics. I just doubt it was. But how true to the comics do you guys believe it was? Whether you know the comics or not, how do you guys think it was acted, written, and everything like that? Because obviously I loved it. I thought, obviously visually, I say visually it's not that big of a deal, but you can make something that looks really crappy. So I can't act like that's impossible, because it definitely is. But I do think it was well written. I think it was well acted. I do think it looked well, as well. But I love this episode, and I want to know what you guys thought about it. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.